Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our main card opener for UFC Fight Night 113. In this matchup, we have Bobby Green taking on Lance Gibson Jr. Now, this fight was very recently added to the card. I believe it was either today or yesterday it was added. I'm pretty sure it was today. Or no, I take it back. It was yesterday. Now, this is going to be a catch weight of 160 pounds due to the short noticeness of this fight. And it's weird because I know how the UFC had announced that Bobby Green was going to be on this card, but didn't really have an opponent for him. So they kind of made this fight as short notice. Or, sorry, yeah, kind of, what's the word for here? Made the call, found Lance Gibson, and has put this fight together. Now, that being said, Lance Gibson is pretty good. He's 9-1 as a professional. 5-1 in Bellator. His only loss coming to Vladimir Tukov, who seems also like a pretty good prospect. And since then, won 2 straight fights in exciting cage against Charnin Spain and RJ Hoyt. Hey, now, Gibson is currently in his prime at 30, and overall is a pretty well-rounded finisher. Like I said, he has good wins via knockout. He's got good wins via submission. So now he's taking on Bobby Green, who, by the way, I am not calling King Green because I refuse to call another man King. That's just me. Who, need no introduction. He's been in the UFC forever. He is pretty long in the tooth and has an extensive MMA career of 38, 17, and 1. Yeah, he's been around the block a few times, and getting to the twilight of his career, or you could call it the tail end if you want to. But still, though, a fighter who demands respect, who's taken multiple fights on short notice. I'm sorry, 32, 17, and 1. My apologies. But a fighter who's been in there with everybody, who's 39, been at this a long time, and has still pretty good wins even at this age. Beat Grant Dawson with the first shot he threw, and most recently beat Jim Miller at UFC 300 in a great fight between veterans. So in this matchup, you have experience versus a more methodical precision. Green is a veteran known for his unpredictability, speed, and volume striking. A fighter who thrives on creating angles and keeping opponents from guessing. Meanwhile, Gibson, on the other hand, is more composed, technically disciplined, and increasingly comfortable imposing his wrestling and grappling control. So the contrast sets up a fight where improvisation and chaos meet structure and calculated pressure. The fight isn't more so about raw power, it's about who can enforce the rhythm. Green wants movement, disruption, and unpredictability, while Gibson wants engagement on his term, systematically pushing the fight towards either his striking or grappling and positional control. So the matchup is going to become a test of whether Green's creativity can overcome Gibson's methodicalness. But without further ado, let's break down their styles. So starting with Green, he has spent years refining a unique approach. His striking is quick, angled, and high volume. Mostly fighting with his hands down, constantly doing odd hand movements and gestures. But most of that is to force opponents to guess where his strikes are going to come. Plus, he's well known for talking to his opponents constantly. Green is capable of throwing combinations from awkward positions, often catching his opponents off balance and landing shots that feel like they kind of come out of nowhere. That's one of the benefits of having your hands to your hips. As long as you have good head movement and good reflexes and good vision as well. Good vision is very important. Fighters like him or like Stephen Thompson are able to fight with an unpredictability to their game. He's a sort of an intelligence, using their good footwork and angles to reset, disengage, and then re-enter. And one thing, when you fire a punch off from the hip, while they're not as powerful as your traditional punch, just the awkward angles of a punch coming from way down there will often catch the opponents off guard. Green's unpredictability is, like I said, his greatest weapon. He mixes levels, uses feints, and can suddenly switch rhythm mid-combination, not relying on one shot or one strategy. His strength lies in forcing opponents to react constantly. Now, Green actually has good wrestling. He just doesn't use it. He prefers to strike. But in terms of defending, he can defend, he can scramble and survive, but it's not the centerpiece of his game. As I said, he's got good wrestling, but you kind of saw it with the fight with Jim Miller, being able to deny Jim Miller's wrestling and takedowns. It's just Green doesn't really use it. He prefers to stand-up fight. Now, one of the issues about Green's style is because he relies on head movement, a judge can mistake him turning with the punch as like, ooh, his opponent caught him clean and literally forced his head back. That's sometimes why you see Green like touch like this, not just to gesture his opponent it didn't hurt, but also the I guess trying to show it didn't land clean. But like I said, all in all, Green's style is pretty good, but especially forcing an opponent who's kind of lost, just like stuck there, million thoughts going through his head. Mostly of like, how do I hit this guy? He keeps talking to me. What am I going to do? Now, the biggest issues with Green's style is not really so much in the style itself, though, of course, it always has its issues when you're fighting with your hands down. Mostly in like, if a fighter solely relies on head movement, the moment they say lean back, they're kind of stuck there until they reset. So firing off combinations is usually a good way to land on a fighter who relies on head movement. But the biggest issue for Green is age. Like I said, he's 39. And I just said all of his fights, right? 32, 17, and 1 on 19. I don't know. That's about 50 fights if my math is correct. Yeah, if my math is correct, that's about 50 fights. So not only do you have age, but you also have all the wears and tears, not just from fighting, but from sparring. And so on a style that, if, from lack of a better term, relies heavily on his reflexes. Reflexes and speed are often the first thing to go when you age. And so you've seen it in most recently where fighters are able to catch him in shots that arguably he wouldn't have gotten caught with as easily if he was in his prime. And that is something to be concerned about for Green. Now, looking at Lance Gibson, he approaches fights with good patience and calculated aggression. His wrestling is the more or less the foundation of his game. He chain wrestles together. He transitions pretty smoothly from position and applies good pressure that gradually dictates the pace. And once Gibson secures control, he doesn't really rush in terms of his position. It's more about weight distribution and forcing opponents to expend energy while he conserves his own. His striking is also technically sound and efficient. He doesn't rely on flash or volume. He picks his moments to engage and uses striking primarily to set up his entries, maintain distance, or create openings for the wrestling. And his ability to mix pressure with positional awareness allows him to turn small advantages into cumulative control over the course of a fight. Now, the key in this matchup is tempo. Green wants unpredictability, fast exchanges, angles, and counters designed to keep Gibson guessing. Meanwhile, Gibson wants structure, gradual pressure, controlled movement, and just win via mostly his wrestling. Early in the fight, I think Green's speed and creativity can create openings, especially his straight punches, sudden kicks, and lateral movement could force Gibson to reset and adjust. But Gibson doesn't need to match Green's volume. He needs to absorb time and capitalize on moments when Green overcommits. The clinch, the cage, tie-ups, and short-range wrestling exchanges favor Gibson, as they do reduce Green's ability to dictate rhythm and force him into more or less reactive patterns. Now, my official prediction, I gotta go with Lance Gibson Jr. This one. I think as the fight progresses, Gibson's style begins to gradually go to his advantage. Green will likely have flashes of success, especially in the early rounds, clean counters, unpredictable angles, and moments where his pace creates hesitation. But the longer the fight lasts, I think the more Gibson's pressure can take over. And also, my biggest factor in this fight is I don't trust the Bobby Green chin. Now, I'm not saying Gibson can knock him out in one punch, but you look at the last 3 losses, right? The Jalen Turner win was awful, also mostly because that was a late stoppage, but Green took a beating in that stoppage. Paddy Pimblett submitted him unconscious and broke his arm. And then most recently, Hoofy KO'd him dead with a wheel kick. And then he had to also pull out of the Diego Ferreira fight. Though I don't think it would have mattered. I was going to pick Ferreira to win that fight anyway. I just think Green has taken so much fucking damage over the years that I just don't think his body can keep up. I don't think his chin is there. I don't think he fights with the same speed he once did, same power he once had. I mean, I don't think Green was well known for his power, but I don't feel like it's come recently as of late. And I know what people can say. Oh, but he knocked out Grant Dawson. Yeah, Grant Dawson's pretty chinny though. So I think ultimately the fight tilts towards Gibson, who can control the rhythm, maintain constant pressure, and dictate where the exchanges happen. So once again, I'm going to go with Lance Gibson. I think he can get the submission in this fight. He's a pretty good submission artist, like I've said, pretty good wrestling. And while I don't know or think he is Patty Pimblett level good to say catch Green from guillotine to transition to triangle and go for triangle armbar, I think Gibson is a good enough grappler and wrestler that I think he can eventually find the submission on Green. So once again, my official prediction, I'm going to go with Lance Gibson Jr., and I'm going to pick him via submission in this fight. But that being said, that's been my breakdown of this matchup. If you like the video, like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think is going to win. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. Stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see you all next time.